Hello, hello, hello. Oh, isn't it a great time to be a web developer, eh? How many times was HTML in the key? Oh, it's brilliant. I was amazed. Anyway, I'm Paul Kinlan. I lead the developer relations team in Chrome. But before we dive in, I've got a little demo to show you today. It's not the best looking demo. It was made by me, but I think it tries to demonstrate everything that we're working on inside Chrome, at least anyway. So I'm learning Welsh. I live in North Wales. My daughter speaks Welsh in school, Japanese at home. Learning languages is unbelievably hard for me, and I have a Welsh teacher, and the way that she teaches me is she gives me images, and then she asks me what is in the image in Welsh, basically, and I have to describe it. As a learning method, it works surprisingly well. So I built a tool to help me. Can we just switch over to the demo? So this is the demo that I built, not a vibe code in sight. It was all handcrafted by me, as you can tell. So this is the new select element. We can style everything inside this. I think it's pretty neat. We have this kind of proficiency mode where you can select the level, a language level. It's got Brit mode because Brits are really good at learning languages, right? We have capture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture an image, and what we're going to do is we're going to send it off on device to our multimodal model, prompt model, and it's going to generate a whole list of questions for us to kind of practice on. So here we go. There we go. It's a nice photo, I think. So in the background, it's going through the multimodal model. We have this little hover thing here, so it's already got the description. No JavaScript in sight, it's just a bit of HTML, popover, and the interest invoker. Here we go. We have the questions, and I can delete some of these using view transitions to get rid of elements from the DOM. We've never been able to animate them before. Unbelievably brilliant. And then if we press play, I've sent every single question through our new translation API that's on device, no data leaving, and it's generated the list of questions which are now in our carousel that we showed a little bit earlier. And then I think this is, what color is my shirt? Green. Here we go, it's gone off and checked. It says I got it wrong because I didn't answer in French. But this is the power of what we've got right now, is that with just a small bit of JavaScript and everything in HTML and CSS, we can build beautiful applications. We can build better ones than that look like this. Can we just switch back now, please, to the main presentation? Cool. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we're hopefully making the ecosystem more powerful, more capable, and easier to use. And you'll be able to build applications that look and feel way better than the one I just built now. But you'll be able to do it just with a small piece of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So I live with the web. I grew up around it. This is me in 1998 when monitors were tiny but unbelievably heavy. And this is literally the best photo that we've got. It's incredibly grainy. But I had hair. I can't believe it. It was incredible. My mum loves it still. Anyway, I've been here long enough and working in the web for long enough to see a huge amount of different transitions. You know, the dial-up to broadband transition, desktop to mobile. Maybe there's an AI-enhanced kind of transition that's happening right now. But fundamentally, the web has just changed so much in the last 30 years. And it's not slowing down. In fact, the web is accelerating in capability, in performance, and I think also in opportunity. And it's at the center of every major technological shift. The browser is now an operating system. It works for everyone, everywhere, across mobile, desktop, tablet, on your server, even in your car. It's kind of amazing. But before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge something about this presentation today. Chrome has changed so much in the last year, with hundreds of new features just shipped. Amazing capabilities, CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. We've only got about 30 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to cover everything that everything that's coming through Chrome. I've just got a couple of major themes that I want to try and talk about today. But there is a major tension that I do want to talk about first. Like, the web means so much to me because it just gives us the ability to do what no other platform can do. You can just write once and reach everyone. And the web's superpower is that it's a medium that is accessible to all in any browser just by clicking on the link. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And yes, in Chrome, we build features kind of that to demonstrate the future of the web that we think is needed on the platform. But no matter what that Chrome does, the web only advances when all browsers advance together. And also at the same time, the common perception of the web is it can't do this and it can't do that. It's just this pervasive story everywhere. But the web is more capable and it is more versatile than we give it credit for. And the question is, like, what is causing that perception gap? And I think it's two things. It's clarity and compatibility. They're two big major areas where developers just don't have enough confidence. And it's, it comes from a lot of issues, but like browsers have either prioritized different web standards, we all implement different things, and sometimes we implement them differently as well. And this makes it very difficult for developers to understand what features work well across all browsers. And so we are working with other browsers to address this in two ways. The first, you might know, is called the Interop project. And Interop addresses compatibility issues by bringing browser vendors together to identify focus areas that you, the developers, have said are important for you to fix. Like in 2025, we hope things like anchor positioning, view transitions, the navigation API, we hope that these are all addressed so that they're available across the entirety of the platform. And the second is the baseline project, which you heard a little bit more about today. Now, the goal of baseline is it gives you clarity on what feature areas, things like CSS Grid, are supported across all browsers, and it breaks it down by feature availability into 3 different categories: limited availability, newly available, and widely available. So limited availability is when the feature is only in 1 or 2 browsers, and it's only really usable with polyfills or other different mitigations. You're very unlikely to use it for a production site, but they're kind of interesting APIs at that time. But when a feature becomes interoperable, it's the moment when it's available across all major browser engines, we consider it newly available. Now, it still might not be ready for you to use in your production sites, based on your browser support, but it's at least something that you can start to plan for. And then the third stage, after 30 months, we consider it widely available. And this is the point when we think developers can confidently use the feature on the platform. Now, I'm incredibly excited by Baseline for the first time that we can see as the web, as experienced by the people that use it, is improving faster than ever before. Since 2020, the web has expanded with 196 different features that have become widely available. I mean, I actually tell a lie. I checked last night, and it's 197 features. They wouldn't let me update the slides. The slides had to be locked. But it's features like streams, broadcast channels, the is-and-where pseudo-selectors, and the dialogue element. These are all things that are available for you to use in your experiences. And we expect at least 150 more features to become available over the next 30 months. Things like popover, has, container queries, HTTP3, new set methods, they're all becoming widely available in the coming months. And I just don't think we've seen the level of progress for such a long time. And I think it's amazing to see all the progress that all the browser vendors have achieved with this project. And we're also making it easier for you as developers to keep up with latest improvements. The web platform dashboard at webstatus.dev tells you exactly what features are baseline, newly available, and widely available. And the feature dashboard focuses on feature area so that you don't have to look up individual statuses of each feature. And the great thing is, the data that drives baseline is the data that drives the web platform dashboard. And this data is also available for you as developers to include in your tooling. Now, you might have already seen the data being used on web.dev and MDN. MDN integrated baseline support across over 70% of all their pages. But there's lots of other ways that baseline data can help you as a developer. So RunVision, they wanted to help their customers figure out which baseline features were available and supported by their customers' users, and they combined their baseline data with their real user monitoring data and discovered that their customers were serving polyfills to about 97% of their customers when they didn't need to. And by looking at your site's actual usage data, you can then target a specific baseline year and make more informed decisions about which features that you can use in production. But to put the baseline target into practice, you can configure your linter, as we saw in the keynote, and it enables you to warn your developers and yourself when your features that you're using in your code go beyond your baseline target. And so if you use ESLint, there are 2 plugins that support baseline. First up is the CSS by ESLint with the baseline rule configured by default. And the second is the community plugin HTML ESLint that has also added its own baseline support by default. And if you use StyleLint, there's an officially supported baseline plugin for you too. Now, we obviously spend so much time in our IDEs, and what we really want to know when we're coding is this feature something I can use? Is it ready or not? Well, wouldn't it be great if the baseline information that you need was easy to access, easy to understand, and right in your environment? Well, now you can. So baseline is now available in Visual Studio Code, and soon in all downstream VS Code-based IDEs, including Firebase Studio. And as we heard before, we've also partnered with JetBrains, who will be adding baseline support into their WebStorm IDE in the coming months. Now, so whenever you hover over a feature, you'll be able to tell if the feature you're using is baseline newly available or widely available, or in your IDE, right as your code. I just think this is amazing. It's so productive. Now, we are really excited about all the different tools that are adopting baseline and baseline data and integrating it in, because the more tools that we have that deliver these baseline integrations, the easier it will be for you as developers to build for the best of the web and have confidence to ship high-quality sites that use the latest features. We're obviously going to continue investing in baseline so that you can use those technologies without compromising stability or cross-browser platform compatibility. And Rachel is going to talk about this a little bit later in her talk with what's new in the web. Now, we've covered a lot of features that have come available to all browsers. I want to spend a lot more time now talking about some of the exciting things in Chrome that we are delivering first. So first up, obviously, is AI and what it means for the web and how the web excels, I think, at delivering AI features and products. Now, I think that the web is a great platform to deliver AI-enhanced experiences because millions of users can instantly access them with just a simple click of the link. You can use massive cloud models like Gemini 2.5 Pro that have advanced capabilities like writing code, or you can take advantage of client-side AI with models directly inside the browser. So client-side AI models, I think they're really exciting. They've got benefits like zero network latency, they're cost-effective, they can have enhanced privacy, and they even work when the user is offline. And when adapted to specific tasks, these models can also match the performance and quality of server-side models, but without the cost overhead of running on the cloud. So if you're comfortable managing your own models and your own distribution, obviously you can use tools like MediaPipe and Transformer.js because they use some of Chrome's new core platform primitives. Technologies like WebAssembly and WebGPU, they give these libraries direct access to the hardware, like the GPU and maybe new things in the future as well, directly on the user's device, allowing them to run the models in the browser as fast as possible. They let you analyze things like text, images, video, and audio all in real time. And they do things like text sentiment analysis, image classification, tracking objects inside videos, transforming text into audio, and even doing things like image-to-image transformations, again, all directly inside the browser. Now, over the last couple of years, we've asked you what tools and what features that you really need to get the most out of AI in the browser. We listened, and we've built a number of APIs for some of the most common use cases into the browser. Now, these built-in AI APIs, they're designed to address two different challenges. First, you shouldn't have to spend time reasoning about what is the best model to use for common tasks. You should just be able to use it. And Chrome's built-in AI uses highly efficient models that should just work without any extra effort from your side. And the second is that your users shouldn't be bogged down by the sheer size of some of these models. One model can take a long time to download, and if the user has to download it for every single site that they visit, they take up a lot of storage space and a huge amount of bandwidth. Built-in AI models are managed by the browser and are available to all sites. So that means that once a model has been downloaded once by one model, it's available to all sites using the built-in AI APIs. Now, I love these APIs. You saw some of them in the demo a little bit earlier. But I want to show you some of the APIs that we're shipping really soon. So the first one is the summarization API. It's available in Chrome 138, which I think is Canary as of today. And it enables you to compile long articles, complex documents, or even chat conversations into concise summaries. The API can generate different types of summaries in various types of lengths, in different types of formats, like from short paragraphs to bullet points, in plain text, in Markdown as well. And it just helps users get a quick overview of long text. The language detector and translator APIs, also available in Chrome 138, let you detect an unknown source language and then translate that text into over 39 different languages on the fly so that you can build features that adapt to the user's first language. Now, you also might need an API that's a little bit more broad, one that can address a wide range of needs. So at last year's I/O, we announced the prompt API, and after all the feedback that we've received, it's now available in Chrome extensions. This API lets you send natural language requests to Gemini directly inside the browser. So for example, you can create an extension to generate instant calendar events that extract key details like the time and date from websites. Or you can extract contact information from a website so you can then subsequently more easily contact a business. Now, developers are already using this technology to build impactful Chrome extensions to help their users. And I think this is actually a pretty cool example. So many businesses still rely on printed documents for day-to-day operations. And digging through physical docs to find what you're looking for, it's slow manual work. And so our friends at Adobe recently experimented with using the new prompt API and some multimodal support in their Acrobat extension. And they can use it to apply it to kind of analyze a historic stock certificate with faded and difficult to read text. Now, their users can now generate text summaries from scanned visuals in Adobe, all directly within Chrome. And in this case, a user can then chat directly with the Acrobat AI assistant to surface, organize, and validate key facts. It reduces just a huge amount of manual work and enables faster, more accurate capture of critical information from even sparse or degraded documents. So the idea of being able to analyze and understand any type of information inside the browser, not just text, I think is a critical piece of functionality. So we're adding image and audio input to the prompt API, making it multimodal for the first time. So you'll be able to describe the contents of images and produce summaries and extract information, structured data from text, images, and audio now. So whether it's transcribing text from an audio file in the browser or extracting handwriting from an image, you'll be able to build very advanced applications and run them all locally on device. Now, the way that you use this API is actually pretty simple. It's exactly the same way that you would use the prompt API. You create a session by calling create and add the new expected inputs option, and then you call prompt. But then when you call prompt, you can include image elements, blobs, image bitmaps, video frames, and even canvas objects. And then you just call prompt, and you'll get the response. Now, I believe that the prompt API with multimodal input will open up a brand new world of experimentation inside the browser. But we still hear that you want very targeted use cases. And so I want to show you two more APIs that are going to help with composing and writing inside the browser. So the first up is the Proofreader API. It's being developed to help you compose better prose, compose better, it rhymes? Oh my God. Anyway, so while using a web application. So this API can label errors in inputted text, explain it to the user, and then offer corrections as well. Again, all inside the browser. But what if you need a little bit more inspiration when, say, crafting your next Blue Sky post? Well, the Writer API can help you generate content that matches the topic and the context of a specific task, such as maybe saying how awesome this talk is. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, but you can also use the Rewriter API to then adjust the copy, to adjust the tone and length of the content, all you can make it a little bit more formal as an example. Both of these APIs are now available as Origin trials. And if you want to sign up, all of these APIs that we described today are available in Chrome Canary, and we'd love you to test them out. And if you want to try them out, you can go to this URL on the screen. So there are going to be times when client-side AI just doesn't work for you. Not all devices can run models locally because they're not powerful enough or they don't have enough storage, or even, in a lot of cases, the browser just doesn't support the APIs that we're working on. So we need this hybrid approach of pairing web AI and cloud together that allow the same model to run on device and when capable, will fall back to the, well, when not capable, will fall back to the cloud AI, while ensuring a very consistent and the same response from both sides. So our colleagues at Firebase have built the Hybrid SDK as an extension to the Firebase Web SDK, and it can detect if a user's device is capable of running the model and then make a decision on the fly to say, well, I can use the client-side model or Gemini on the server, and it's all via one single implementation. I think that's actually a very powerful and progressive way of actually building applications today. So this hybrid API, this hybrid SDK is currently available as a special preview, developer preview, for you to be able to test. It's not ready for production yet, which we hope will be coming later in the year. So just obviously check out the link. You'll get information about the developer preview and when it will be available as the final version. Now, while it's great to see AI capabilities come into the platform, we as a team, we're on the developer relations team, we thrive when we help you deliver high-quality sites that are fast, accessible, and you can do it quickly and easily. And we think Chrome DevTools is the premier tool for you to be able to just do that. So Chrome DevTools has been pioneering features for web development from the beginning, from debugging layouts to in-depth performance analysis. So last year, we introduced Gemini in DevTools with console insights and AI assistance. And we've seen developers use this like crazy. Like the ability to interact directly with Gemini in DevTools has just been a game changer for many developers. But I want to show you also what we've been working on over the last year and how DevTools has evolved with powerful new features that streamline your development journey. Brilliant. Well, brilliant. I use these features every day. I just love the progress that we've seen in DevTools. I just want to spend a couple more moments just actually diving in a little bit deeper into some of the AI assistance work and all the features that we've landed inside DevTools. So we're going to cover some CSS issues, network issues, and advice on your site's performance. I think the fact that we've got AI in the browser helping in these areas, it's going to be a game changer for everyone. So if you're having trouble with a specific element style, AI assistance for styling now supports complete end-to-end debugging of styling issues. So you can select the DOM element or DOM node and then start just a free-flowing conversation with Gemini about the element. And so if you get stuck, Gemini will also give you kind of pre-filled prompts to suggest what areas that you can look at. And once you've identified the problem, you can then prompt Gemini to fix it and then even apply the fix directly back into the source code, all within DevTools without ever leaving Chrome. The network panel has also seen a new Gemini integration as well. You can ask questions like, why is this network request taking so long? You can ask it to explain about security headers or why even web requests are failing. And I use this quite frequently. It's just such a good feature for debugging CDN issues and things like CORS issues as well. And the same applies for the performance panel. So you can talk to Gemini about common performance issues, and it will investigate which particular slow-running functions or what particular slow-running functions are doing, and then it will also give you actionable insights about how to fix those issues directly inside DevTools again. And in addition to the AI enhancements, we've also reimagined the performance panel to help you identify and fix performance issues and just keep your web applications running fast and smooth. So now, all of your core web vitals information are in one place, and it now pulls in real Chrome user experience data next to your local experience so that you can ensure you're actually fixing the problems as experienced by your users with no recording necessary. And you'll also get advice on what environment settings to use so that you can match the majority of your users. And once you've identified the issue, if you really need to, then you can go and record a full trace and deep dive into the issues. Now, the Insights tab in the Performance panel is now powered by Lighthouse, giving you guided, actionable insights about performance issues that are slowing down your site. Here you'll find LCP insights for page load issues, INP insights for responsiveness, and CLS insights for layout stability issues. And if you want to zero in on specific third-party scripts or concentrate only on the contributions of slowness from your own APIs or your CDN, the Summary tab will now give you a breakdown of first and third parties that DevTools is able to find on the page. So for a long time now, DevTools has been giving you the power to quickly and easily understand and improve the performance of your site. But what about the web as a whole? Like, what if everything about the web was faster? When the web's fast, more people use it. So I just want to show you some of how Chrome is pushing web performance forwards. So we introduced the concept of Core Web Vitals in 2020, and it was our effort to measure and optimize like what we thought were the essential aspects of a good web page experience through 3 key metrics. And in 2024, people saved about 30,000 years of time surfing the web simply because it got faster in the core metrics that Core Web Vitals tracks. I think that's incredible, right? What's more, the number of sites that had good LCP has increased by almost 8%, and the sites with good INP has increased by over 12% in the last year alone. I think, yeah, these are fantastic results. And we're excited that 2 Core Web Vitals, which are largest contentful paint and interaction to next paint, will soon be coming to other browsers as part of the Interop 2025 project that we mentioned earlier. Well done, Barry. That means you'll soon be able to understand how your users experience your site no matter what browser that you're using. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes just looking under the hood of Core Web Vitals and explore some of the new metrics and APIs that we've worked on. LCP subparts breaks down the LCP time into 4 distinct phases to help you understand where the bottlenecks are, and they provide crucial insight into LCP image loading and help you easily identify where to prioritize improving your site. As well as showing local LCP subparts, DevTools now also shows field data from the Chrome User Experience report directly in the same report. And it's also not just us. We're seeing more performance tools and run providers exposing this very useful information. Now, we introduced the speculation rules API at last year's I/O as a way of letting you programmatically tell Chrome which pages to prefetch and pre-render in advance of a user navigating to them. So the ability to go from fast loading to instant loading, it can just make a massive difference in how users experience your site. And this API has been a resounding success, with over 8% of page loads now benefiting from speculation rules. And Cloudflare is an internet security and performance provider serving over 20% of the web. And last year, Cloudflare launched SpeedBrain, which is a product which uses speculative loading by default to improve the performance of sites on Cloudflare. And their testing showed a 45% improvement in LCP for successfully prefetched sites as compared to non-prefetched sites. And on the INP front, the scheduler.yield API helps you improve INP by pausing execution of long tasks, allowing the browser to attend to other pending tasks and then resume the original task. If you ever did Visual Basic, it's kind of like do events, at least from when I started programming. And we're seeing that over 6% of website page loads now are already using this API. LOAF, which I think should be called loaf, but that's an argument I lost ages ago, brings the long animation API, long animation frames API to everyone. Now, a long animation frame is when a rendered update takes longer than 50 milliseconds. It's the same threshold as the long tasks API. But the key advantage of looking at this compared to individual tasks is that a long animation frame can just be the result of a number of tasks, but it's a point of visual jank on the page. Additionally, the LOAF API gives detailed script information, helping you identify the areas on your site that impact UX and also INP. And we're excited to see that already 10% of websites are using the LOAF API. And last but not least, I think it's one of the most important and most impactful new features that has come to Chrome. Compression dictionary transport is now available in Chrome, and this new standard enables you to differentially serve static assets so that you only send what has changed in an updated version of the file. So by reusing a previously downloaded file as a dictionary for compression algorithms, things like Brotli, you can massively reduce the amount of data transferred and speed up page loads. So for example, if you've got a compressed version of your library, 1.8.3, and you're using version 1.8.2 as your dictionary, the output could just be a couple of kilobytes, potentially a compression ratio up to 98%. And so Google searches use compression dictionary transport to reduce the size of its HTML payload by 23% as compared to the standard Brotli implementation. It also saw an LCP improvement by over 2%, or almost 2%, sorry, and up to 9% in high latency networks. Like, these are huge gains for an already hyper-optimized site. Less optimized sites might see even more benefit from adopting this technology. So being able to understand your page's responsiveness and improve loading, I think this is great. Because when I think about web performance and I think about making it easier for people to access experiences on a website, obviously the quicker the better. But what about when a user is on the site? So for the past 3 years, we've seen an amazing explosion in the expressiveness of UI capabilities on the web. And these UI features enable you to build beautiful, responsive, and performant websites faster and more efficiently than ever before. You know, take view transitions for an example. I think it's just been amazing to see the progress in just a few years. We started with the same document view transitions, and then a little over a year ago, we enabled view transitions between page navigations as well. And just recently, as we saw in the keynote, Google.com added view transitions to power the UI for things like AI mode in search. It just makes such an amazing difference to the experience of the web. And a number of frameworks are also adopting view transitions and making it easier for you to use this API right out of the box and express custom transitions between your UI states and pages. It just makes navigating the web feel more seamless, just as it should be, and I think it's just amazing to see. And we've seen many improvements such as make your life as a developer easier. Cascade layers, CSS nesting, light and dark mode, scroll-driven animations. They're all making building UI significantly easier and also more attractive. But today, I do want to talk about some new UI primitives that I think that's going to make it possible to deliver drastically better experiences for your users. You know, these new UI primitives will make it easier to build common UI components, things like carousels and tooltips and drop-downs, like the core features of almost any single site on the web. They'll enable you to get rid of third-party dependencies, eliminate kilobytes of JavaScript, and hopefully improve rendering performance as well as we move work off the main thread. Now, carousels are ubiquitous on the web. They get used millions of times a day. So what happens if we worked out the fundamental primitives that enable carousels and just built them into CSS and enable you to ship these experiences with just CSS? Well, the good thing is that the core functionality, like features like scroll snap, they're already on the platform. So all we really have to do is sprinkle in some new primitives like scroll button and scroll marker, and now you have a carousel. It really can be that simple. We think they're going to also enable different types of experiences, tabs and cards, and different types of UI, all again with the same small bit of CSS. For example, you could build video sliders with cool parallax effects. You can build horizontal app switches similar to what you would find on iOS and Android when a user switches between apps. Or you could even do something kind of fun, like a vertical scroll wheel of choices. We're only just scratching the surface of what's possible with just these simple additions to CSS. And I think they open up a huge amount of possibility, and I'm really excited to see the progress. Obviously, another common use case is one you saw a little bit earlier in the demo is select boxes. Now, I remember using select boxes in IE4. You could set a breakpoint in Visual Studio, not VS Code, in Visual Studio into the JavaScript and breakpoint on your code. And if you scrolled, the scroll bar would just stay stuck. You couldn't do anything. And that's because they were system-level widgets. And for nearly 25 years, we've seen next to no progress in this core platform primitive. So developers have gotten around this by re-implementing it in JavaScript, naturally. And so we know that you want the ability to style select boxes and bring them into the branding of your site. And you've told us that you want to include HTML directly in the options and provide functionality that we've just not had on the platform before. Well, stylable select, which is an accessible, standardized, and CSS stylable select element, it just gives you that ability. By using appearance base select as the new CSS property, it puts the select element into a new configurable, stylable state, and every part of that base select can now be swapped out and personalized and even animated. And Yuna's going to talk a lot more about this tomorrow. So the select element can also include rich HTML content. So for example, in the country drop-down menu, you can include a flag next to your country, or when you're browsing through a list of people, you can now include an avatar next to their name. So with all of these features that I've launched in the past year and the new ones on the horizon, I really do feel like the web is getting way more tactile and way more expressive. And Temu, which is an e-commerce company, has been setting the bar when it comes to applying these new primitives to their full potential. And they've seen some really strong gains. After launching their integration with the multi-page application view transitions API, it's a bit of a mouthful to say all that, they saw user session duration increase by 10% and user page views increase by 15%. And they've also been internally testing a slew of new APIs, including carousels, popover, anchor positioning, and also custom select. And they've observed improved page performance and a reduction to about 10 to 15% on CPU load. I just think these new UI features are awesome, and the web is actually becoming more stylish and responsive every single day. But there are still massive user experience issues when it comes to common tasks. We know that filling out forms and keeping track of your password are two major frustrations for anyone who uses the web. So we've made some steps to streamline these complex interactions for your users. Autofill is one of the first ones. It's built into Chrome, and it allows the browser to automatically fill in the website's form fields with the person's saved information from across all the devices. You can now measure the impact of browser autofill on your forms and get insights into how users interact with your forms, and so you can make better forms from that. It gives you the data that you need to make improvements. And we've also had some fantastic results from partners implementing autofill on their sites. Our friends at Shopify know that when customers are ready to buy, even the slightest delay or extra steps can stop a sale. And after implementing autofill across their platform, Shopify found that guest checkouts using autofill had a 40% higher checkout completion rate than guest checkouts without autofill. So I think autofill wasn't just good for their customer experience, it was great for their business too. And after forms, passwords are the next big area that we've worked to improve. We're already seeing a shift from a world to a world without passwords. And I think that's for the best, because passwords come with innate risks and challenges from people using weak passwords, reused passwords, or even just they're susceptible to phishing attacks. But passwords are so ubiquitous that a transition to a passwordless ecosystem across the web, it's just not going to happen overnight. So in the short term, we've improved the Google Password Manager to help users manage their password more easily. So I just want to give you a little sneak peek at the automated password change feature now that's in Chrome, which automatically changes passwords that are stored in Google Password Manager. So when Chrome detects that a password has been compromised, a user will get a suggestion to change it, and then with permission, Chrome will automatically update the password on the site behind the scenes. So we're going to start with a subset of websites in 2025, and we'll expand this to more websites in the future. But there are just a few small amount of changes that you can make that help make this automated password change work more reliably, and you'll just be able to get adopted straight away. And also, they'll benefit every single password manager. This is obviously, again, where autofill comes in. So by using autocomplete current password, it's been around for years, you can help the password manager identify the right field to use with the saved password. And when you use autocomplete new password, for the new password field, you can help the password manager to suggest strong passwords to replace the old one. Now, like I said, these annotations, they're just a web standard, but they're an effective way to optimize your website to work better with any password manager, including the automated change. This works on sign-in pages, sign-up pages, any browser that supports, well, any browser and any browser with a password manager, not just Google Password Manager inside Chrome. But the final part of this transition from passwords to a passwordless ecosystem, it requires fundamentally different technologies. And passkeys and FedCM are two of the technologies at the center of this area. We've only got time to be able to kind of talk about passkeys today. But over the year, we've made a number of improvements to passkeys and how passkeys works inside the browser. So passkeys on Google Password Manager are now synchronized and saved across all platforms, including Windows, Mac, Linux, Chrome OS, iOS, and Android. And websites can now automatically request your password manager to create a passkey on your behalf, as long as you already have a password saved. And we're introducing a new API, which will also let you ask the user ask the user's password manager to create this passkey automatically. And this will work as long as the passkey is saved for your site and was also recently used to sign in, and then will notify the user when the passkey has been created successfully. Now, we would recommend that you call this API immediately after a successful sign-in with a password, and it's available in Chrome 136 across all desktop platforms and will be coming to Android soon. And when the user signs back in, you can just trigger the autofill dropdown to automatically for any credentials that are available on the device, including passkeys. And to make this work, again, you just use the correct autofill values for passwords and also include the passkeys autofill attribute, and then simply set the autofocus attribute on the input field, and then Chrome will just do the rest. So these are just a few of the user experience improvements that we've made to the core of the platform over the last year to make the web more consistent and more seamless to use. And there's a lot more that's happening that we couldn't get into today, whether that's improvements to identity federation with FedCM, the digital credentials API, and even things like device-bound cookies. So by making the web easier and also more secure, we believe that people will sign in more, sign up more, transact more, and just simply enjoy using the web. So how's everyone feeling about the future of the web? Are you excited? Brilliant. I'm actually very happy you did that. I'd be mortified otherwise. So I'm super happy and excited about this continued push of the web. You know, we're going to make it easier to build for, whether that's through a more predictable web with baseline, better dev tools, you know, combined with our work to make the web faster and more interactive with our UI improvements. And obviously, there's a personal highlight for me about bringing more AI to people just by being able to click on a link and they'll be able to access it straight away. So thank you very much for joining us today. Be sure to follow us on social media. Visit us on developer.chrome.com and web.dev, and you'll be able to deeper dive into everything that we've talked about today. So from everyone here at Chrome, thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
So hello. Oh, that was very nice. So I'm Rachel Andrew. I'm the content lead for Chrome Developer Relations. So if you've ever read an article on web.dev or developer.chrome.com, then you've benefited from the work of my team of writers here at Chrome. I've also had a long career as a web developer and as a writer and speaker, teaching people about web development. And as Paul said, right now really is an amazing time for the web. So while you're at Google I/O, you're going to learn about loads of amazing new web platform features that are landing in Chrome. There are some really big problems being solved right now. The features that are landing are solving problems that I've been battling with as a developer for over 20 years. Some of them are things that we thought couldn't be done. Now, I'm sure when you see some of the demos and you hear about the features, you'll be as excited as I am. But I also know that for many of you, your first thought will be about how long it's going to take before you can start to use them. If something ships in Chrome today, will it be years before it's available across browsers? Now, perhaps you've seen comments like this, I can't wait to use this in 10 years' time. Maybe you've made those comments, or at least had the thought in the back of your mind. That was true once. But the platform is changing far more rapidly today than it ever has done. If we take a look at the platform as a whole, the truth of the situation is that features are going from one browser to available in all browsers much more quickly than ever before. This chart shows the median number of days for CSS features and how that's dropped over time. And we can take a look at some features. So style container queries. Now, this was a feature that for years, browser vendors and spec writers thought couldn't be done. Once the code was cracked, however, it became baseline newly available in 5 months. So that's the time between it landing in Chrome and Safari in September of 2022 and Firefox in February 2023. And then there's Cascade Layers, which is now baseline widely available. This launched in Firefox in February 2022, and in just over a month, it was also available in Safari and Chrome, making it baseline newly available. Just a month. Now, I'm sure most of us can point to a feature that one browser or another hasn't implemented, but in general, features are becoming baseline newly available very, very quickly. I could have picked from a large number of features to make the same point, and I'll share some more later in the talk. But we can just take a quick look. These are some of the features that were mentioned in the latest in Web UI talk at last year's I/O. So many of those features were new to Chrome, were mentioned at I/O last year, and they're now baseline. There's some outliers, but a lot of things become baseline in under a year. And this is the time to baseline for features that have become baseline newly available this year in 2025. This includes things from right across the platform, not just CSS. Now, you can probably spot there's an extreme outlier here with content editable plain text only. And I always find this quite fun to see when you get a really old Interop pain point becomes picked up and it gets fixed. But again, we're seeing lots of these features coming in at under the 1-year mark. I'm going to come back to specific features later in this talk to find out more about what's actually new on the web. But first, I want to talk a bit more about the other problem that we have with a quickly evolving web platform. And that's how can we as developers take advantage without getting overwhelmed? And how can we be sure when the things on the platform are ready to use? Now, if you've heard any of my I/O talks in the last couple of years, you'll know that the way we're solving this problem is with baseline. So as we've seen, these big features, things that we've wanted for years, are being designed, implemented in one browser, and then very quickly becoming baseline newly available. And what that means, how we describe baseline newly available, it's once they ship in the core browser set. So that's Chrome, desktop and Android, Edge, Firefox desktop and Android, Safari, macOS, and iOS. Now, the thing about a feature being in baseline is once it's there, it's unlikely to change because we've got multiple implementations in different browser engines. Any finer details will have been discussed and agreed on by people from all of the browsers in the working groups that cover these features. It's also the point, once it's newly available, that anyone with an up-to-date version of these browsers will have the feature available to them. Then, after 30 months, they moved to the baseline widely available status. Now, that's a status where you should feel pretty happy to use the features without needing to worry about non-supporting browsers, polyfills, and fallbacks. Working with the Web Developer Experience Community Group, which includes all of the major browser vendors and developer community members, we devised the baseline widely available line to be a solid choice if you haven't got other information. So you're building a brand new site and you don't have any existing browser stats. You're going into a new market. Or perhaps you just want to land on something that's got data behind it as being a really good line to base things on. The thing is that between baseline newly available and baseline widely available, there's actually plenty of chance to adopt features earlier. Because not all features are equal in terms of what happens if the user doesn't have the feature. And not all sites are equal in terms of the browsers used by the majority of the visitors. And the really cool thing about baseline is that the data that we've got that enables us to tell you what's baseline newly available and baseline widely available is there for you to use too. You can use that to essentially create your own baseline for the projects that you work on. You can use it to make decisions about individual features that don't meet your chosen baseline, but that are good candidates for progressive enhancements or polyfills. So let's take a look at how that works. Behind baseline is the web features data. This is an open data set. It's maintained by the WebDX community group. And what it does is it breaks the entire web platform down into a set of features. And by looking at the browser support data for each feature, decides the date at which it becomes baseline newly available. This data is now complete. We've mapped the whole web platform. And so as new browsers release each month, it gets updated and checked to make sure that within a week or so of a new browser becoming stable, any new baseline features are flagged. And you can follow along as this happens by using the web platform dashboard. We announced this last year at Google I/O. The default view of the dashboard is ordered by the date which the features become baseline newly available. You can click any feature and you can see the dates that it lands in the different browsers. To see combined data about how the numbers of features is growing, we'll soon have a new stats page, which will show the number of baseline features along with the features that exist in each browser. Features missing in one or more browsers are classed as limited availability. They're not yet part of baseline. Now, this data is a goldmine of information. And combined with data about web users, and particularly with your RUM data, the data about your users, can help you make decisions about your own baseline target. So last year at I/O, we announced that the RUM Archive Insights had integrated with baseline, and that was now available. It lets you take a look at the number of users supported if you select a baseline year. Now, this year, the integration has been updated with the ability to filter for the top 15 countries sorted by traffic in their data set. So let's think about baseline years for a minute, because so far I've talked about baseline newly available, the date at which the last browser in our core browser set supports a feature. I've talked about baseline widely available, 30 months from the baseline newly available point. Now, based on the information you have about your users, you might think that widely available is too conservative, or perhaps not conservative enough, in which case you could identify a baseline year as your target that provides just the right amount of browser support for your site and audience. So if you look at the RUM Archive data and choose baseline 2022 as your baseline target, that would include all the features that became newly available up to the end of 2022. The data tells you that just over 98% of their tracked users would support all of those features, and it also tells you the features that are included. If you jump forward a year to baseline 2023, 93% of users have support for that wider group of features. For more information on the features that you get by moving your baseline target forward, you could head to the web platform dashboard and select each baseline year to browse the features. While you're there, you could look at individual features. For example, if I was interested in the small, large, and dynamic viewport units, they're part of baseline 2022. And on the feature page, I can see when they were implemented in each browser. I can scroll down and see adoption information for the feature in Chrome. Now, this data starts in 2024 because that's when a use counter was added for the feature, so you could see how many people are adopting it. But you can see how over the course of this year, developers increase their use of the feature. So having data about general users across the world or users in your country, that's really useful if you've not got anything else to go on. But if you already have data about your users, you can use that to figure out the best baseline target for you. So the feature mapping data that I mentioned earlier powers baseline and the web platform dashboard. It's available for you and anyone else to use, and we're starting to see a number of tools and products integrate it. Last year at I/O, we announced that Rum Vision would be implementing baseline into their product. This integration is now live. Because that's using your Rum data, data about the users of your own site, it can help you identify the baseline year to adopt based on that data, rather than a global average. It can also help you to see if baseline widely available makes sense for you. In the data on the screen, you can see that 99.7% of users of this site supported the widely available features. You can learn more about the Rum Vision integration in this case study on web.dev, where they describe the technical implementation work they did to bring baseline to their customers. The exciting thing about this integration is that it pairs real user data from your own sites with the web features data that identifies features in baseline, right down to a per feature level. So this slide here shows the content visibility property with data from two different websites. The first website is a US-based technology site. Visitors have more up-to-date browsers than those coming to the second site, which is a realtor site in the Middle East. So therefore, in addition to helping you identify your baseline target, Rum Vision can identify particular features that have high levels of support from your users. For example, Rum Vision has seen 5 of their customers remove the Lazy Sizes lazy loading plugin and replace it with browser standard lazy loading, because they realized through their Rum data that over 98% of users had support. So even though lazy loading of images and iframes is a newly available feature, it won't become widely available until 2026. For many people, it was a feature they could adopt much sooner. So I'll talk more about using baseline for progressive enhancement a bit later. So moving on to other tools. Perhaps you're a Google Analytics user. We've released a tool that lets you import your Google Analytics browser data and then identify the baseline target that's most appropriate for your user base. Again, this tool is built using the web features dataset. So you can export your data from Google Analytics, you import it here into the tool, it's processed on device. And then you get a report like this. Now this is showing the results for web.dev. It shows slightly lower support for baseline 2022 features and slightly higher for baseline 2023 than the Rum Archive worldwide data, but it's in around the same region. Another place you might want to link up information with your own user information is using the data collected by your CMS or developer platform. The WebDX community group has recently launched an extension for Netlify that shows support for different baseline years and widely available on your sites, and that will help you decide what to target in your build tools. We're expecting to see more integrations landing this year. We already have commitments from Cloudflare, who are planning to launch tools for deciding which baseline is right for you and measuring the impact of adopting new features in their Observatory Rum product. We also have Content Square, who will bring baseline data into their tools to show opportunities presented by different baseline versions and new web features. If there's not already something that works with the tools you use, if you've got an internal tool, or if you use something that allows for plugins, the data is fully available for your own integrations. You can use the API provided by the Web Platform dashboard or consume the data with the available NPM package. We're also trying to make this a bit easier for you. When Rum Archive built the dashboard last year, they had to handle a lot of mapping of user agent strings to browser versions and web features. That was pretty tricky and time-consuming, but we've recently made available the data and tooling to make that really simple and straightforward. You can now map browser versions to baseline years and widely available using the baseline browser mapping module from the WebGX community group. That can be used as a server-side JavaScript environment, or you can download JSON or CSV files, and they're refreshed on a daily basis from the repository. Interestingly, the data includes mappings not just for our core baseline browser set, but also for downstream browsers, so things like Samsung Internet, Opera, UC Browser, and Android WebView. So you've figured out a baseline target for your projects. Now, how do you make sure that the features that you're using meet that target? Now, you can obviously look at features individually. We've been able to do that for a long time, and there's a bunch of ways and places to do that now with baseline data included. So perhaps you'd like to use registered custom properties with that property. Now, @property gives you a way to declare a type, syntax, and define inheritance for a custom property or CSS variable. It makes using CSS variables much more robust, and it gives you additional functionality. You can use them to animate gradients, for example. But is it available for your users? There's an increasing number of places showing baseline status on features. So you might go to MDN, and you'd find the baseline information there. We've partnered with MDN since the early days of baseline, and now the majority of pages show baseline information at the top of the page. You can see how that's climbing up as they're rolling out more of their pages. They've also got their more granular feature information at the bottom of pages. So when we announced with MDN the support for baseline, they had about 20%. We're around 70% at this point of features have baseline support included. You can also find the information by going to an article on web.dev and looking at the baseline widget that we include in the article. And it's also included on the majority of Can I Use pages. Again, you can see that climbing as it's being rolled out across Can I Use. 333 feature pages now include the information. And again, you could find it on the Web Platform dashboard. And wherever you look, you're going to find out that it became baseline newly available last year, and therefore is baseline 2024. So knowing that it's baseline 2024, you're probably going to find it's too new, particularly if you've decided that your baseline target is going to be baseline 2023. So OK, we can look things up individually, and you might say, well, we've always been able to do that sort of thing, and we're seeing baseline pop up everywhere. I mean, for example, the baseline widget has now been used in several places on the web. CSS Tricks built it into a WordPress plugin to use on their site, which is based on WordPress, and made it available to everyone. But the next step is to integrate baseline into the developer tools that you can use every day. Now, last year, I went to Google I/O, but I also went to all of our I/O Connect events. And I went to Europe, India, and China, and developers all over the world asked me for tooling integration. They said, yeah, this baseline thing, it sounds great, but we want it in our tools. We want it in the things we use every day. We want baseline to be available while we code, not to have to go and check every single thing. So imagine that you've identified your baseline year. You want to make sure that you and everyone on your team has sight of it as you code. Here's how you get it into your tool chain. So let's start with code compilation tools like Babel and PostCSS. What all of these tools have in common is they use browsers lists to determine the list of browsers that they need to support. Together with the WebGX community group and other members of the community, the Chrome team helped to release a tool called Browsers List Config Baseline. This helps you to configure your browsers list targets in baseline terms, like widely available or baseline years. To use Browsers List Config Baseline, install the package from NPM and use the extend syntax in your Browsers List RC file or wherever you're setting your browsers list targets. With this, any tool that takes a browser's list target can now be expressed in terms of baseline. For example, if you're using Babel preset env to add polyfills for cutting-edge JavaScript, with browsers list config baseline, you can be sure that you're not shipping unnecessary polyfills that have support for those baseline features. Similarly, you might be using a tool like PostCSS to downgrade CSS features and to add vendor prefixes for unsupported browsers. Now, you can configure it to keep the modern CSS intact if it meets your baseline targets. And then what about linters? Now, you might want to ensure that your source code doesn't include any cutting-edge features at all, and that's the job of linters. They'll warn you if they detect any features that don't meet your baseline targets. Using baseline with linters has recently been made possible with a few new tools in the linter space, starting with ESLint for CSS. ESLint for CSS has a use baseline rule. You can set this to your preferred baseline target. It'll warn you of any features that are newer than your target. Of course, you can choose how to resolve the warnings. You might replace that feature, or you might suppress the linter warning. That's a perfectly valid solution if you're using a cutting-edge feature safely, because it's a progressive enhancement. By default, ESLint won't warn if newer features are used within @supports blocks, because unsupported browsers are going to not evaluate those ones anyway. For your HTML linting needs, there's a community plugin called HTML ESLint, and it works just like the CSS linter, but for HTML elements and attributes. So, for example, you might consider HTML features like popover to be too new to use in production, and HTML ESLint will flag that for you. Other linters beyond ESLint are adding baseline support too. StyleLint officially supports a plugin called StyleLint Plugin Use Baseline, and it behaves just like the ESLint rule for CSS, but it runs on StyleLint instead. So baseline support in compilers and linters, that's really great. But what about getting immediate feedback about features while you're coding? Now, as you've already seen, you can go and check each feature, but many linters, including ESLint, now have IDE extensions that will annotate linter warnings in your editor as squiggly underlines. So with these new baseline linter rules, you can see at a glance which web features in your code don't meet your baseline targets. Now, while thinking about IDEs, many of these have long supported a way to hover over a feature in the editor, and you see a list of supported browser versions. But it can be pretty hard to understand if that means the feature is safe to use. You have to figure out if there are any browsers missing from the list, and you also need to know how new that browser version is. And browser version numbers are getting pretty big these days. It's often quite hard to know exactly how old that browser is. So to fix that problem, we've partnered with the most popular IDE used by millions of web developers, VS Code, to integrate baseline data directly into those hover cards. So you can hover over a feature, it'll tell you whether the feature is considered baseline and for how long, and whether there's any major browsers that don't support it yet. Supported features include CSS properties, HTML elements, and HTML attributes. Now, not everyone uses VS Code. What about other IDEs? Well, if you're using an IDE that is based on VS Code, then it will inherit the changes automatically. So things like Firebase Studio, GitLab, Replit, and other VS Code IDEs will start rolling out the improvement over the coming weeks and months. And hover cards are also in WebStorm, the popular JavaScript and TypeScript IDE from JetBrains. All of these tools are ready for you to use today, but we really are just getting started. So in the coming months, look for more announcements and updates about other tools that are starting to integrate baseline, making it easier for you to understand baseline status as you code. We're also really excited to see companies adopting baseline as their way to show browser support levels. So this includes web agencies, site builders, and frameworks. All of these are places where being clear about browser support to users and customers is really important, and it can save problems down the line. Last year, we saw UK web agency ClearLeft adopt baseline widely available as their default level of support for client work, making it clear to clients how they supported browsers. Site building platform Wix have recently decided to use baseline widely available as their threshold for adopting new web features. Their front-end guild team said baseline gives us clarity around which features we can support and removes the ambiguity in our tooling. Our developers now don't need to spend time digging through the compat tables in MDN to know if a feature will work or not. They just look for the green tick and go ahead. Baseline helps our developers feel confident that their tools will warn them when they've used a feature that we don't support. It also reduces the number of errors and broken experiences we might release. And the Angular framework team announced that from version 20, which launches next week, they'll be using baseline widely available at the time of release as their supported feature threshold for all versions. So you now have the ability to have a better understanding of the browser support your users have, and also a way through data and tooling to tune your development to meet the needs of your audience. And while adopting baseline widely available or a specific baseline year as your baseline, and feeling confident to use all features that fall within it, it's worth remembering that not all of those features are equal in terms of what happens if a user doesn't have a feature. You don't have to feel like baseline is a go, no-go indicator. Instead, you could look at it as a way to reduce the number of features that you need to make a call on whether they're okay to use, as a progressive enhancement or even with a polyfill. So perhaps you've decided that baseline 2023 is your baseline target. Now, if you treated that like a hard line, a feature like text wrap balance wouldn't be usable, as it's baseline 2024. It became newly available about a year ago. Adding text wrap balance to a line of text like a heading tells the browser that you'd like it to figure out a balanced presentation of the text, rather than doing something like leaving a couple of words, 1 or 2 words, on a wrapped line. If you were typesetting in print, you'd try and avoid this situation. You don't like to have unbalanced headings. So on this slide, you can see there's 2 words on the second line with a longer line above, and that's something you'd probably prefer to avoid. If you add text wrap balance, the headline looks much nicer. It's a really nice effect, and the thing is, there's no downside to using text wrap balance. People who don't have the feature in their browser get the unbalanced text the web has always had. People with newer browsers get a nice improvement. They get some nice balanced headlines. And because the way that browsers deal with CSS they don't understand is that they just ignore it, unsupporting browsers are going to just ignore that instruction. Nothing terrible is going to happen. So things that haven't crossed your baseline don't need to be unusable. You can treat them as consider carefully. And in a situation where you decided to use a polyfill, you can then just use your run data to see when it's time to remove that polyfill code. Just like the people who learned that they could remove the lazy sizes plugin that I talked about earlier in the talk. So I started this talk by telling you how the web was improving faster than ever before, and you've now seen how you can use baseline to help you to take advantage of it. I want to come back to that point and to talk about some features that are baseline newly available or that we expect soon will be. So last year at I/O, Una presented new CSS and UI features. Many of them at that time were only in Chrome, or they missed implementation in one browser. Now, a lot of those are now newly available. I already talked about app property. That was one of the features covered this year. That was a Chrome first feature. It's now newly available. The CSS light dark function first landed in Firefox and then came to Chrome. In May last year, Safari shipped it. It became baseline newly available. This function lets you write styles for color themes in a much more concise way. Instead of creating a block of color for your main color theme and a user preference query, you can use the light dark function to describe these values in a single line of code. Also helpful for color theming is relative color syntax, letting you dynamically adjust color values in your CSS. So for example, you can lighten a color right there in CSS using any available color space. Now the example here is using the OKLCH color space. It lightens the blue by increasing the lightness channel, multiplying it by 1.25. This pushes the blue lightness towards white by 25%. We've got a ton of examples in a guide on developer.chrome.com. I also want to highlight the fact that style container queries, which were also mentioned in Una's talk last year, they're going to become widely available this year in August 2025. If you're starting a new project right now, you probably don't need to hesitate about using container queries. And there's so much more. Here's all of the features that became baseline newly available in the last 12 months since the last Google I/O. The web really is getting better, faster. So I'm hoping that, as you learn from the talks at Google I/O about more features that are coming soon, you can be excited that they actually will be part of your workflow and your projects in the very near future. And just to get started, there's a few really exciting things that we can be pretty confident will hit baseline newly available this year because they're part of Interop 2025. Interop's an annual initiative where all browser vendors and other parties come together to tackle some of the top pain points for developers. Each year, a list of features is created, and everyone works together to make them interoperable across all browsers, so they become baseline newly available. Interop 2024 was a huge success. It brought a load of features to baseline: app property, font size adjust, the request video frame callback method for video, scroll bar styling, transition behavior, text wrap balance, and popover. And Interop 2025 includes some really exciting features. And we can be pretty confident they're going to become baseline newly available soon. So let's take a look. We've already seen one feature become baseline newly available, and that's the sideways RL and sideways LR values for the CSS writing mode property. Now, the writing mode property itself and the values that let you do correct presentation of CJK languages when they're written vertically, that's already baseline widely available. So, for example, if you use writing mode vertical RL, that will cause the block direction to run right to left and the inline direction top to bottom. Now, while those vertical RL and vertical LR values let languages that are traditionally written vertically be displayed correctly, they do cause some issues if you want to use them in a horizontal language just for display purposes. So if you want to create the common sort of magazine layout where you've got a vertical heading and then the text next to it, that's a kind of presentational use of the values. And that's where you're going to want sideways RL and sideways LR. If you use sideways RL, all the glyphs are set sideways towards the right. In left-to-right scripts, content flows vertically from top to bottom, and in right-to-left scripts, content flows from bottom to top. Use sideways LR, and you get the opposite. So glyphs are set sideways towards the left. For left-to-right scripts, content flows vertically from bottom to top, and for right-to-left scripts, from top to bottom. So if you're using vertical writing modes just for layout purposes, the sideways values are probably the ones you really want to reach for, and those are now newly available through Interop. And we're not yet halfway through the year, so the next features are part of the project, but they're still missing implementation in one or more browsers. And we'll start with anchor positioning. That shipped in Chrome 1.2.5. It's part of the Interop project. It gives you a way to tie the position of an element to an anchor, for example, when you open a tooltip with a button. So we've got a demo here where you've got a set of buttons that are opening tooltips using popover. The button, which is a circle with a question mark icon, that's the anchor, and the tooltip's a positioned element. No JavaScript's needed, and these tooltips will always position correctly against their anchor. As each button has a popover target attribute, and that refers to the ID on the popover element. Now that's a very, very simple example, and there's lots more to learn. Check out the anchor positioning article on developer.chrome.com to find this and many other demos. Now, it's really exciting to have this very, very useful feature part of Interop 2025. And then we have LCP and IMP. Web Vitals have been taken up by many people because they're so useful in letting you quantify the experience of your site and identify opportunities to improve. The Web Vitals initiative aims to simplify the landscape and help sites focus on the metrics that matter most, so the core Web Vitals. Interop 2025 includes largest contentful paint, LCP, and interaction to next paint, IMP metrics by implementing the largest contentful paint API and the event timing API across browsers. LCP reports the render time of the largest heading and image visible in the viewport relative to when the user navigates to the page. And a good LCP value is 2.5 seconds or less. INP is a metric that assesses responsiveness using data from the event timing API. INP observes the latency of all interactions a user has made with the page and reports a single value which all or nearly all of those interactions are beneath. If you've got a low INP, that means the page was consistently able to respond quickly to all or the vast majority of user interactions. So with these two core web vitals being part of Interop 2025, you should be able to measure them across all browsers once they become baseline newly available. And then we have the details element, which again, this is already baseline widely available, but it's been included in Interop 2025 because there's a number of related features that make disclosure widgets with details much more useful. So when you've got a details element, it contains a summary element. Now that's the bit that's visible on the page when the details element is collapsed. Outside of the summary is the content of the details element. Now that's hidden until someone comes and clicks on the summary. So one of the things that's been made interoperable during Interop 2025 is to hide the content using content visibility rather than display. And what that means is if it's not expanded, the content won't be rendered at all. Also part of the Interop 2025 work is the marker pseudo element. The marker pseudo element lets you style the summary element's disclosure triangle because the summary element has display list item. And then there's another pseudo element, that's details content. Details content represents the content. So that's the part of the details element that expands and collapses, and it lets you style it. There's also some nice improvements, such as auto-expanding the details element with find-in-page matches, and bringing the until found value of the HTML hidden attribute to baseline newly available. So that will hide an element till it's found by browsers in-page search, or if it's directly navigated to by following a URL fragment. And then we have scope. So the CSS scope rule lets you limit the reach of your selectors. If you set a scoping route with that scope, any style rules that are nested inside the @ rule only apply to that DOM tree. So here's a very small example, but if you want to target image elements inside an element with a class of card, then card becomes the scoping route. And then we have another feature that's going to help reduce complexity and improve scrolling interfaces, and that's scroll end. Now, if we don't have a scroll end event, there's not really a reliable way to detect that a scroll is complete. So what you're probably doing already if you need to do this is to use set timeout and check to see if the scroll has stopped for a period. Now, the thing is, that's really a scroll has paused event, not a scroll has stopped event. So with scroll end, the browser does all of the difficult evaluation for you. And again, you can learn more about this event on developer.chrome.com. And then last but definitely not least is view transitions. They're also part of Interop 2025, and we hope will become baseline newly available this year. The work in Interop this year is same document view transitions, so that's the ones for single page apps, but also view transition classes. View transitions enable fluid, app-like experiences for your sites and applications, such as in this demo for Maxi Ferreira. It's so exciting to see that they're going to come to all browsers this year. Now you can find out about all the features that are part of Interop 2025 and follow along on the Interop 2025 dashboard so you can see how the project's shaping up as the year progresses. The features included in Interop 2025 won't be the only things that become part of baseline this year. As you saw from last year, lots of things became baseline. But their inclusion in the project gives us a pretty good sign that they're prioritized and they're being worked on and they're going to come soon. So it's been a really exciting year for baseline and for the web. You know, we've moved on a long way from the announcements we made last year. For baseline, we're now in a position where the backfilling of web features data is complete. That's opened the floodgates, and it's allowed developer tools to be created. And we really are just getting started. If you have a product or open source tool that would benefit from including the data, we'd love to hear from you. Keep an eye on web.dev, because we'll continue to publish announcements about new tools along with tutorials to help you get started. We'll also continue to publish posts when features hit newly available, so you can see what's coming, what's available to you to use. But the most important thing, and the reason that we're doing this work, is that having all this information and tooling should allow you to take advantage of web platform features sooner and with more confidence than ever before. So if you learn about some cool new thing here at I/O, we hope that instead of thinking it's going to be some vague number of years before you can use it, you know that you've got the means to track exactly when you can start to use it. Thank you very much for listening.